This makes no sense at all.
Well, this is a hole they punched to get to the tunnel.
How'd they know the tunnel's down there?
Because they found the opening that was collapsed in the wash. And then they decided, since that was collapsed, they'd punch a hole in. So they started punching holes, and this is the hole they supposedly punched and intersected the tunnel.
But how'd they know there was a tunnel?
Because they found what looked like a ramp going up to a tunnel that was collapsed. They saw the tunnel, but it was collapsed inside.
Okay, how far from here?
They don't give you an exact measurement, but it has to be. That's what I wanted to get. What I wanted to get was a direction of this tunnel, which they say is due north. And then you have to go straight.
North that way.
That's what I'm trying to look at. I'm trying to see. Looks like the tunnel goes this way.
All right.
So this has to go this way. If the original tunnel, which it collapsed, yeah, and I wanted to see, but you can't see back the other side.
One of the things we always have to remember when we're out and on any of these expeditions is the people up above are calling the action. So if I'm descending down into a 40, 50 foot hole, Frank's calling it. So if Frank's uncomfortable and he's hesitant and he's not sure that I should be doing this, I have to let him call it whether or not we're going to do this or not. And that's always important to remember. It's not about whether I want to or my desire, how far it goes. So Frank's uncomfortable, Frank's not sure of this, he's trying to think of some alternative before I put myself in some sort of harm's way at that point, because it's a very limited group, and if there's a problem or some mishap, we're very limited on what we can do in that time and place. So Frank says, I'm not so sure about this, and I can read his body language. That's my lifeline, and if my lifeline's not good, I have to realize I can't just rely on myself. If you drop me down in that hole 40, 50 feet and I'm hurt or something happens, I'm pretty much stuck and I'm done for. So I have to listen to Frank, and Frank gets to make the call.
I want to be down in there so fucking bad, Frank.
How deep is it?
I'm going to say 30 feet tops. Because I'm about 10 feet there, 20. Yeah, it's right there's the bottom. I can see the bottom, Frank. And I can see a couple things. I think I see a pickaxe or something. I see a piece of wood. Yeah, and it's not dirty down there. It's just boulders, rock. See a couple of those things, and I don't see anything else.
Yeah, they fell off the side. And I can see a few more ready to go.
Okay, but no, what I'm saying is there isn't, I don't see a solid floor, but then I can't see back to the tunnel. I can see where the tunnel starts. I can see just the edge of it right here. I can see just the edge of it right here. It's under these, see these two rocks there? Okay, see those two rocks that I'm lighting up?
No, because I'm anchored in right here.
Okay.
I can't see down
There's
in
two
there.
rocks, and I can see the tunnel, the one side of the tunnel opening. And it looks kind of sheer. The problem is, the better angle you'd have, you can't sit over there under that side and see it.
First time, we go to the Staircase Mine. I took one look at that entrance. Like I said, it's a funnel-shaped shaft going down. And all around the side, you have hanging rocks. Now, I personally have had a bad experience with hanging rocks because I was at one of my claims, And the gold witch told me there was gold up there. See where that rock is? Go up there. So I'm standing on this rock with my pick in one hand, my metal detector in another, and it lets loose. And me, the rock, my pick and my metal detector, I rode that rock all the way down into the wash. And down at the bottom was this big giant tree root sticking up. I would have got impaled on that. So I stuck my foot out and it flew me up in the air and I landed face down on this pile of boulders. Now I hit so hard, I had a pair of those military pants like Wayne wears. They're indestructible. I hit that thing so hard they split from one end to the other, right up the crotch. And I took one look at that tunnel, the staircase mine, and Wayne gets his pack and he pulls out a harness, and then he pulls out this little skinny rope and ties on the harness and hands me the other end. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna go down. I'm like, first of all, I'm like 160 pounds. I don't know how much but I know he weighs twice as much as me. And if something happened to him, there's no way in hell and I told him, I said, if you go down in there and that thing collapses on your head, I'll call search and rescue and I'll hand them my end of the rope and I'll say, just follow the rope, you'll find them.
Tyler. Oh, shit.
I got an idea.
I'm thinking about taking parachute cord and drop the camera down.
That's what I was just going to tell you.
One of our brighter ideas in the end was to drop thousands of dollars of equipment down into the hole. So it seems like a better idea than a human life. I was thinking at first drop my cell phone because one of the ideas I had is if I could lose the cell phone, then it gave me an excuse to go down in regardless. But I think everyone caught in that. But then there's a lot of people holding their breaths because there's thousands of dollars on the line. And between the dust and the rocks and the damage that could occur, it seems like a very expensive thing just to get a look at what we want to get ourselves into later. But it was kind of the way we had to go at the time.
Well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run it over that. I wanted him to get the parachute cord first. And then I'm going to slowly make myself out of this spot. Okay, you got me? Because I'm kind of trying to find it. I'm hanging out over the edge.
I got you.
Ah. All right, now, let me slide. Yeah, I can run it from right here. Okay, give me the parachute cord. Tyler? Oh, no, it's not parachute cord. Go in the same pocket. It's real skinny stuff. There's a whole bundle of parachute cord in that pack. What the fuck is it?
Your balls are crossed.
What? Yeah. What'd you say about me,
I
Frank?
said your balls are crossed.
The balls aren't fucking crushed. This is a fucking jumbled mess. This is nice. Who had this out last?
The tunnel goes this way and this way.
That's what it's supposed to. That's why I want to get a look to make sure.
Then we gotta look down this way. What the fuck?
That's what I'm
You
trying
had
to
to have that like on a roll.
Well, it was. I don't know who unrolled it or freaking. That's Trevor's pack, by the way. Give me that other rope. Jesus Christ, that's a fucking mess. Who the fuck? How much do I got out already? I don't freaking know.
Tyler, see if you can untangle it.
Red dot's on. Alright, here we go.
Yeah, that one.
One of the big problems we had is it was almost impossible to control the spiraling of the camera going down. Taking the camera down wasn't as bad. It was a very slow spiral. Bringing the camera up, because we were just trying to bring it up, and once we knew we were clear, it literally would give you vertigo watching it. It just was like a weird effect. And so sorry about that, anybody gets dizzy on that, but that was just, you know, we want to kind of give you what was happening and what was occurring. We tried several harnesses, several ideas, but the problem is it was going to spiral regardless. We didn't have something thick enough or with enough tension and able to manipulate it in a way to prevent that spiral.
Push it the wrong way. There we go.
Come on, turn the other way. We're on the first ledge. Problem is, we're going to need to be out more to get it down in the hole. It needs to be out there. Okay, let's slowly bring it up. Slowly, because it's covering that. Okay, hold on.
Just working on this.
So one of the things is, after we get everything back, is I go through not only the video footage slowly, I also start freezing frames and making still photographs and making sure I look at these stills of just different things, looking for symbols. There's a couple things we found a little like possible carvings on rocks and so forth. And I wanted to pay close attention to this. It's like one of those things of saying, we get a story which I'll, you know, is someone did this, but you know, I'm not finding any scuff marks on the rocks like there was a backhoe or anything in there. I'm not finding the mechanical work that had done in there, which is important, because if I find marks on rocks, I can eliminate that of that's how those things happened. I kind of look at it and realize we're getting resolved to our point of we really need to get in there. Now it's taking the video footage, the photographs, and looking at the history and experiencing more and trying to understand more about it. Is what we're looking for, what we're looking at, and the people that have been involved, because that's another important point, is getting everyone that's ever been in there, that's had any type of experience with it, and be able to take their history or what they've seen down in there and then match it up with what I see. So I have an expectation, and then if I get in there and I realize this does not resemble what they've shown me in a photograph or what they talked about, I realize possibly the deterioration or whatnot. So, because we have to be very, very cautious, because we don't want it to be a one-way trip down in there, because then you don't even get to see what happens.
The Indians in this area, they have a story, a legend about little people. Now, it's my opinion that it's possible that the little people could be Mayans. They don't know where the Mayans went. That whole civilization just disappeared, and they like to look at one of their pyramids. Underneath the pyramid, you would have a tunnel going like that to a sacred area. And there are stories of other staircases in the mountains. And there's also stories of tunnels, like lava tubes from the volcanoes. And it's entirely possible that you could have a lava tube going from point A to point B. Just like Jack Sanfelice told me a story, a friend of his was doing an aerial survey. I believe he was a geologist. And he made a comment that he thought that there were lava tubes going through some of the mountain. So if you find one of those, naturally you can follow. I mean, they're lava tubes. But the problem is, at the Staircase Mine, that horizontal shaft that goes in is alluvial gravel. It's not hard pack, it's loose. And that thing, anytime, especially after you get a lot of rain, those big rocks can come down and squish you. Just like Bob Shoup said, he climbed into that. Went all the way to the staircase, and he looks up, and there's this giant boulder right above it, waiting to come loose. And if you were down that staircase and that thing came loose, you're fucked. You're going to be looking for another entrance. But the problem is, we've received reports from people who have worked that there are sealed walls that you have to dig out. Like cemented sand and whatnot, you have to dig that out, and then you go a little bit wet, and then there's another one and another one. So at the bottom, it's sealed. Why?
Well, some days aren't always totally successful, but yeah, that wasn't a lot of fun. That wasn't fun. So I got the gear packed back up, and it's just this kind of a crazy thing here. I hate to cover up the camera like that. Looks so amateurish, but yeah. So that was a hairy moment or two or three, and all. But hey, do you notice it stinks coming out of there now? Do you notice a bit of a smell of stink? Yeah, I notice I'm getting I don't know what the smell is though. I don't know. I didn't see any bodies or anything down there. Nothing dead down in there, but yeah. Now that it's warmed up a little, I'm picking up a smell from down in there. So who knows what it could be. Now the spiral story goes back further than most people realize to Andy Sinbad. Now Andy Sinbad was born in 1903. 1904, his family traveled back to Germany. He was born in California as an American citizen. From 1904 to 1946, he was in Germany, the country his parents came from. And he obviously spoke German and everything. He actually was in a concentration camp, I believe, until 1938. Or in 1938, he was in a concentration camp for a period of time. Then he was released and had to do a lot of work programs in Germany. Once the war was over, because of his American citizenship, he was allowed to come back to America. He showed up in Arizona probably around the late 40s, around 1948. Hooked up with a number of people. By 1950 and 51 or so, he becomes friends with Herman Petrasch. And Herman obviously he was born in Germany, so they both spoke German. They became very good friends. Short time later, Andy Sinbad also became partners and worked with a gentleman named Carl Broderick. And the two of them were friends for many, many years. One of the things I'd noticed when I had marked the one area was two other specific areas. This was one of the areas I marked I wanted to check out. Frank came down here before me. This obviously was the entry tunnel. So we did find part of the story is true. There is an entry tunnel that was collapsed. And they made it sound like it would be in the bottom of the wash, but they just said it was by the wash. So this actually fits the description, and if you look down here to my right, you'll see all the loose rock and everything that was dumping out of here.
Yeah, it's about the same depth.
Yeah, the depth just about fits. So, yeah, it has the same depth, the contours, everything. It lines perfectly up. It's with what lined up on my phone. So, yeah, so there was obviously, the story does have that benefiting. This was a tunnel that led to that tunnel. So it did tunnel completely in here. I still don't see this being a mine, do you?
That was dug so long ago, all the fine stuff's washed off, and you just have those boulders sitting there.
Yeah, there isn't a lot of fine material through here.
Like, you see where they dumped all the boulders? you'll see no fine dirt in there because it all washed out. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, I'm saying well over 100 years, 200 years. They found it in the 1920s, 30s. So I don't know how much it would precede that. I don't see anything marked on the cactuses that much. Even though I'm not a cactus marking kind of guy. So, but yeah, you can see there was an old trail. Don't pan that way, but you can see there's an old trail because that's an old trail that game is just using now. But it's worn into the mountain, Frank. And that's not a hiker's trail, you can tell, because it's all overgrown, but you can see it's worn down into the mountain. So if someone was coming out here, they were using, I don't know, it was either pack animals or people made that trail over time. And it's, I don't believe in any way it's a designated trail. So it comes up and around and probably comes down in here. So I would think their camp would have been down in that area where Andy Sinbad put his later claim. Because that would make sense. They would be down there and come up here. But yeah, for the life of me still, I don't know why someone would punch a hole in the side of this hill like this. It's not a mountain. It's not granite. There's nothing here that makes me think would there be anything valuable in any of this. I don't know if maybe you see something. Because I don't see any reason to dig here, take a sample, anything. There's just nothing. All right, let's get back up the hill and let's double check this other site before we start making our way.
So sometime after he's met Herman Petrash in the early 1950s, sometime in the mid-50s, he meets Carl Broderick, and they become very good friends for the rest of their lives and spend a lot of time throughout the mountains. And I'm not going to get into the specific history of Andy's. Andy ended up with what's called miner's silicosis from the dust and the sand, the kind of glass, very small glass-like particles got into his lungs. He was known for having carport sales or garage sales at his house, which a lot of people hated. But Andy was very well liked. He was not always, he was a bit of a myth maker in some instances and so forth, but he was liked. And he spent a lot of time in the mountains, in the back hills. He was all, being a friend of Herman Petrash and so many other Dutch hunters. And he put his time in the mountains. Unfortunately, Andy got more and more ill, and the silicosis affected him. And I believe it was in December of 1986, he took his own life because of his health issues and so forth. Which is unfortunate because he had a lot to say. There's some interviews, but not a lot of interviews. And he's one of those people that knew a lot of those people from the 40s and 50s and 60s and spent a considerable amount of time in the mountains, as much as many other people. And definitely his relationship with Herman Petrash and a lot of what they would have spoke of would have been very important. But we didn't get a lot of details. We got some interviews. But Andy would be one of those people today you just love to sit down and talk to, because sifting through the fact and fiction, I'm sure there were a lot of interesting things and probably a lot of great anecdotes.
This is the tilling pile, this gray area from that hole. It's all sand. It's all sand.
This sand, Frank, they said...
The rocks are piled over here.
Yes, when they got to the staircase, there was sand and dirt filled in the staircase. This looks like this could be the stuff they were hauling out of that. So I wonder if that's what this is when they went to clear that staircase. But this has been here a long time. This hasn't been here like, a year or two.
That's the rocks.
Yeah.
This is the fine stuff. They just threw the rocks up there and dumped the fine stuff there.
This is the stuff that was in the stairwell. Because this is what the stairwell was supposed to be filled with. Fine dirt and sand. And that's pretty clean stuff, Frank.
You have a plastic bag, you can get a sample.
It's just dirt. There's nothing they were mining. The funny thing is, there was a time, it tells you how long ago, if you were able to find an aerial photograph of a specific year, when they would clean the stairwell, which I'm sure there wasn't one, but because this is how you can mark this spot.
It wasn't Tainer that was down in here.
No, it wasn't.
That's Salzar.
It was who?
That Salazar that was mining here. How do you pronounce his name?
Salazar. No, I'm lost. Salazar?
Yeah.
But there's been a lot of people here. Sinbad, Andy Sinbad.
Yeah, that's right. It's Sinbad.
Okay, you meant Sinbad. We were all lost for a moment.
When was Sinbad here?
Sinbad was here sometime, he filed claims 50s, 60s, into the early 70s.
All right.
Out here digging. This
Shit
was his
matches
for a
up
long
to that
time.
time period. Decans, this.
And then after him came Stallworth and Previns or something, a couple guys. And then after they left was Salvador, was up here in the 80s digging. But I believe this stuff has been here. This was supposedly cleared out of the stairwell. What's this? Oh no, it's not pottery. Is it? I don't know. Oh. Frank. Huh.
Now, is this part of their seals, or is this pottery?
Frank. This is, see, there's another piece right here.
I don't think it's pottery. It could be.
Huh. I don't think it's pottery. It looks like it's like a caliche. I don't know if this is part of that seal they supposedly broke. It's really hard to say that, but this is thin stuff. It's almost pottery-like. And it's very smooth. You can see on the surfaces how smooth it is, like it's been worked. It's got that pottery texture to it. That's mixed in with the sand stuff.
One thing about the spiral that comes as very interesting to me is along the history lines, it appears that Andy might have been back in there sometime in the 60s. And when reading the article and so forth, and not quite sure about the article and how it matches up with the actual facts or the truth of people involved in the spiral, Andy is very interesting because he tried to encourage and get a number of people involved in the site and to kind of actively look at it and see what they thought of it. We know he did find the adit. A lot of people give him credit to the adit in the canyon and finding that original opening. He did file on it, and it was called the Cricket Claim. And that was later referenced by Paul Zellner as, yeah, they called it the Cricket Claim because when they opened it up, all the crickets were like, didn't seem to have eyes and had really big antennas, like they'd been blinded in the dark for a long time. So, but it was called the Cricket Claim, and Andy had that, and he was in that area. Now, everybody wants to take credit for everything and over a period of time, but everything I see seems to have Andy in and about and around there and not quite sure what to make of this thing as he got involved. His description of it also changed person to person. Jesse Feldman and I sat down, and Jesse said Andy's description of it to him was very different than what people have seen or what's been reported by Andy or other people later. So it becomes this funny thing that Bob Schuess once turned to me and said the thing's a hallucination. And I said, what do you mean? And he says, everybody that's been in there seems to see something different and they believe in it. And that is fascinating because Bob's words, I think in jest, actually fit it to a T, as even people that have been in there and draw it, people that have looked at it, worked in it, and different things, seem to almost give you a completely, entirely different description. And one of Andy's early descriptions is it goes so far and then it kind of turns back and it does this kind of zigzag going down kind of thing. And none of that makes sense into what it actually is and what's actually down there. So whether that was Andy as he got older and he was ill, or he just couldn't get a grasp on what he was seeing down there. We don't know. But we do know he was one of the earliest people, maybe not the earliest person to discover it, because it appears it may have been discovered over a number of different times and periods over the years.
It's not. It's pottery-like, but it's not pottery. There's several pieces of it laying here.
It's basalt.
Yeah.
Or volcano.
See, though, the textures in it are almost like it's a cement or caliche. See?
It could be part of the wall.
It could be part of this one of the seals. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. I don't think it's pottery, but it's pottery-like. But it's
part of the
man-made.
wall.
Man-made, which is another possibility of that it would be mixed in with the sand, because when they broke the seals, this is where what they were pulling out when they broke the seals. So if they were breaking through that, this would have been in it.
We have to look at the site as wondering, was it have something to do with burials or ceremonies? It doesn't make a lot of sense. There are some burial areas somewhere in the area, and we can't really touch upon those because we don't want people messing with anything like that. That's just important to note. But it could function ceremonial. One of the things I found fascinating over time was we found just a couple shards of pottery, almost no pottery at all in the area. Now it could have, people could have picked up a lot, but usually once there's pottery in an area, you find it for the next 100 years. There's areas that Garden Valley in the Superstitions, you can still easily find pottery everywhere and stuff and arrowheads. And people have been picking that place clean legally and illegally forever. So it's very odd we were able to find so little of anything spread out through that area. But there are pit houses. There was habitation in and around the area. So whatever this was used for, whether it was ceremonial, one thing we do know, not just from looking at it, assaying, taking what samples and what we could, we know it's definitely not a mine. That's the one thing that's clear and easy and clear. It never was and never could be a mine. There was no gold, nothing processed. It was dug for a reason or purpose otherwise.
We found the pile of rocks about 75 feet from the entrance, 60, 75 feet from where that tunnel is, poked in, punched in that pit. And then supposedly the staircase is about 120, 150 feet, give or take. I've seen two different measurements. But the 150-foot mark is right here, and this is where we found this. Frank begs to differ, but it is kind of very precariously balanced here.
I don't know why it's just kind of sitting there.
Well, hold on, but this is exactly in line. I had Tyler stand at the other one. This all lines up perfectly. So the stairwell, if it does exist, should be 50 feet directly below me. All right, let's see what Frank wants real quick. What? I don't think so in that
It's
case.
natural, I'm telling you. Look.
Hey, you can say we can beg to differ. There's your pyramid.
See what I mean?
I'm actually keeping that. That's actually a nice pyramid.
Look at this piece right here.
It's not the same. That one was dug in.
See? Look.
It's not the same. If you go over and pick that one up, you'll see it.
I'm telling you.
Okay. You can say that. We can beg to differ. I say it sits right exactly on top of the 150-foot mark, which is where we're supposed to be.
Yeah, that's how this stuff. See how this is standing up?
All right. Come here, Ty. Winner, winner. This is actually pottery. This is actual real pottery. This would be Salado or Hohokam. This is going to be going back 1,000 years or more. So there's another piece right here. You see it, Ty?
Mm-hmm. Try, Frank, you see that? Got two right there, side by side.
So it puts them in the area. Of course, obviously, we knew we're back in here. And the Pima say they were back in there. Nice piece there. That's a reddish material, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a red mud, like a clay. someone got in trouble and dropped a pot here. So, again, it's an interesting area. It's an interesting story still.
Frank still stands on the fact that possibly someone dug it from the inside out. It still makes no sense either way, because if you're digging from the inside out, you would dig up and then come up through the surface. If you're digging down, why would you dig a tunnel 200 feet long in a very narrow space, descending slowly, and then dig a spiral 125 feet down? So either or, you would think you would come to the surface. How do you know you were going to come out that canyon? None of it actually makes sense. So when you look at it, you can't say, well, they dug to here and then they went down. Well, you would dig to there and then pop out and then go down. One of the big problems with the spiral now and always has been is the airflow. It just doesn't make sense. There's just no ventilation to this. Frank and I came up with a theory that they could have built a trench and then somehow been able to put the boulders in and then cover it with the rest of the alluvial and then had a tunnel buried under. But just none of it makes sense. And I actually worked out the amount of yardage and tonnage for just the tunnel and the spiral itself of how much debris would had to have been removed from there, and where did they take it? Because there is literally, where the pit was dug out, there's a pile of rocks. Where the adit collapsed, there's a few boulders and stuff. There is literally no tailings or anything in the area. And we're talking about tons, hundreds of tons of material that's been moved out of there. How long or whatever it took. How did they get rid of it? They had to be taking it down. I mean, it had to be, just the manpower and the work on it had to be tremendous to actually cut this thing out through the alluvial and then down through the bedrock.
Yeah, but that's where the boulder field is when you get down over there. Where it's easy to cross right here.
I'm going to cross there, Frank.
All right.
I'm just saying, I'm trying to see there's two patches and I can't tell what they basically are. I don't want to walk to them.
Take a picture of it and blow it up.
I did already. I'm still just trying to change the angle by walking this way a little to see if I can tell from the angle what it is. Yeah, we can't, Tyler can't blow it up. Trevor took the big lens.
Looks like an outcrop. See it hit the rocks on top of the hill?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It's kind of in a weird spot though. There's nothing like it on that side. I'll have to go up the photos again. Rock's wearing a hole in my ass. Would you tell me you're ready? Okay, on the corkscrew spiral winding staircase, whatever whatchamacallit, mine on tunnel under the Superstitions. So one of the reasons we definitely wanted to come out here was you get all these different stories, and we'd heard the stories about this area, and we knew a number of the people that had been out here and talked about it, and there were a number of people who had never been out here, and we kind of wanted to kind of wrap around it like, okay, what is everybody trying to tell us? Is there anything we can find that supports the stories? Because generally, as a rule, once you go out in these places with the stories, everything falls apart. And surprisingly, this place kind of so far has lived up to its myth. But it ties into the Burns Ranch, where Old Man Burns, he'd even told Tom Collenborn that he'd seen lights. And this is the area supposedly the lights would actually come down into. So I know Sal Degadillo and a couple people believe this has something to do with extraterrestrials or something. Other people believe that the calendar stone was pulled out of this area, the Mayan calendar, 56-week calendar, which is at the LDS temple, was. But yeah, all these things kind of tie in. And so it gives you a lot of different history. Plus we have newspaper stories about people that have been out here in the 20s, 30s, 40s. So we know this is at least has a 100-year-old existence, and it's just not a mineralized area. Now people will dig. Bob Schuss refers this as a hallucination. Someone was having a hallucination and came out and dug it. But I don't think one man came out here and dug what we saw. One man wouldn't have been able to do this on his own. It had to be stabilized at one point, and I believe fully that whatever was stabilizing it in that tunnel, once they were done or they decided to clear it, they pulled it out and let it collapse.
But I just look forward to looking at these type of things and seeing what's in them. Plus, it's good to get out. It's a nice day. Get a little sunshine, a little fresh air.
I left
And-
my knife there.
You left your knife back there? Well, I guess we're making a return trip now because we're
Yeah,
gonna.
fuck it.
Well, we'll go back out. I'm gonna get down in there, but I gotta go find that. I want to find the stone faces. Supposedly, there's pyramids, stacks of pyramid rocks in there, and stone faces cut into boulders and so forth. So it's definitely worth more than one trip. My advice for anybody that wants to risk their life and limb is know what you're doing. Today we are definitely following a lot of safety protocol, and I will follow the two people with me. If they tell me no, then I have to listen to them. So what I end up doing today has everything to do with what they say. It's not about you put your life on the line and you don't want them, because they're going to have to live with whatever stupidity you did. So I got the safety harness, I got the ropes, I got everything, the protocol's there, and we'll be following everything accordingly. But then there's also, if someone's like, you know what, stop, this is dumb, we're going to do it this way, let's try this, then we'll reset. And there's always another day. I mean, that way, to use the quote, we always live to fight another day.